A better, more lag-efficient sequential shulker unloader system. Today on Designing a Sword System. Sometime after episode 2 of the series, a fellow NTech member, Camp Hurlwood, probably butchering their username, sorry about that, made a modification of my modification of SamosTheSage's sequential shulker unloader. It cleaned up the design and simplified some of the redstone, and overall ends a pretty nice modification. But it wasn't long before I started making modifications to the modification that was a modification of the modification. And the end result is a design that is probably one of the most lag-efficient sequential shulker unloader designs out there. This design is still a 2-wide tileable design. It's still 7 hoppers per slice like the previous one, only this time around, instead of locking only 3 hoppers per slice, this one locks all 7. This hopper right here is locked by this redstone dust, which is powered by this comparator, and typically, in normal use, there will always be at the very least one item in these shulker boxes, so that very reliably locks that hopper and such when it is not needed. Then of course you got the hoppers under the filter hopper here and such, which are of course kept locked by this redstone torch. And then back here, ends up you have the hopper and such ends up under the dropper line that delivers the shulker boxes, kept locked when it is full. So whenever this thing activates to replace a shulker box and such, and this thing unpowers briefly, which allows the shulker box to get pulled out, and then only ends up once and such a new shulker box comes in, does it power back up and lock that hopper. The remaining 3 hoppers per slice are locked into via a global lock. 2 of the hoppers per slice are locked into via this orange redstone line right here, which powers this redstone dust, which locks this hopper and the hopper to the side of it. All that remains is the filter hopper, and that is locked into by this comparator line going right through here. Now, because this comparator line also happens to power the block, and that's these comparators are reading from, and in order to read the filter, it does mean in such you have to ensure you only power this with single strength 1. Otherwise, if you power it with any higher single strength, it'll activate the slices and of course break the system. Of course, this thing's lag efficiency does come at the cost of space. It is rather large and such, but who knows, maybe at some point in the future someone who's much better at redstone than me will proceed to go ahead and make a modification of this that compacts the design and makes it, more simple on the redstone and so forth. And then ultimately for my sword system project, I'll be running a modification of a modification of a modification of a modification of SamosTheSage's sequential shulker unloader. Dang, this is getting ridiculous. But if this was all I had to talk about this episode, well, I wouldn't have an episode for you today. I don't just need a sequential shulker unloader slice. I need a sequential shulker unloader system, and that is what I got right here. Everything needed for the full featured system is here. It's just being scaled down a little bit for the purposes of testing. Up here is the input system for the sequential shulker unloader. It is a 1-wide tileable design, which makes it very easy to scale it up or down depending on what amount of items I'm expecting it to handle. It consists of 2 parts. Part 1 here is a shulker box filter, so any items coming in here will go through a shulker box filter. Any shulker boxes will simply bypass the mixed shulker box loader and be dispensed into the water stream. The items, of course, get loaded into this mixed shulker box loader. This design right here is a slight modification of a mixed shulker box loader design from SamosTheSage. In my testing, this design has been working into pretty good, although it does have one little quirk to it. Despite what it may look like, it's actually not quite hopper speed for each one of the slices. It's a slightly lower than hopper speed. That's owing to the mixed shulker box loader that I went for here. The mechanism for detecting that the box needs to be replaced is basically on this dropper. So only once items back up into this hopper and then start to back up into this dropper does it replace the shulker box. But then it also goes ahead and locks this hopper because it needs to purge all the items that are in that dropper and hopper and such into the shulker box before it can resume normal operation and such. So once it has done that, the hopper and dropper are empty and so forth, it then goes ahead and unlocks this hopper and resumes normal operation. So yeah, like I said, a little slower than hopper speed in practice, but because of the one-wide tileable nature of this design, it's pretty easy to just build more slices. This thing is very good at picking up items, so here I have a chest and such with a variety of items and even a shulker box. And let's just go ahead and send 2 of those chest contents down here. And you can see this thing just soaks it right up. Now, at this point, you're probably thinking, hey, aren't we gonna have issues with, say, shulker boxes that are partially filled here for an extended period of time just kind of being sucked? So you just got shulker boxes with some items in them, and they never get broken because, you know, they rarely get filled up. Isn't that a possibility? And well, technically yes and no. My initial solution and such was that when I use my storage system, I'm planning on having a button I press to tell my storage system to process a batch of items and such. And simultaneously, that would also send a signal down here, and that would replace all these shulker boxes, acting as a way to purge out any old shulker boxes and such with items in them. But as I got to thinking, and as I was recording this video, I realized, shoot, this could be completely automated. So I realized, because I have all this redstone from these slices, I could just turn this into one big OR gate. And that's essentially what I've done here. So it powers this comparator fader, and this comparator fader will pulse into this rail right here when it depowers, but not when it powers. So when it depowers, sends a pulse down here, over here, and breaks all these shulker boxes. And we literally just saw it happen right there. Beautiful. Shulker boxes from the input system move on to be picked up by this buffer storage for the sequential shulker unloader. It holds all the shulker boxes in this sort of temporary storage and such until they can be processed. Now, the question with this buffer storage is, what size do you make it? You know, is this big enough? Do I need to go bigger? Do I need to go smaller? Well, for my storage system, I want to have something that, if this storage happens to nearly overflow or actually overflow, I would like it to trip an alarm and such at my control panel and such. So I have these 2 outputs. One is the buffer overflow warning, and one is the buffer overflow alert. I get a buffer overflow warning if this chest right here happens to be completely filled with shulker boxes. And I get the buffer overflow alert if this one overflows. And at that point, it tells me, yeah, and such, I really need to add more buffer storage. From the buffer storage, the shulker boxes then go through a shulker fill level sorter. This particular shulker fill level sorter design is by Talon, metamilo, and Inspector Talon, and it splits shulker boxes into one of 3 outputs, either partially filled, full, or empty. In my particular case, I'm interested in the full and partially filled into shulker boxes, while the empty ones, well, I obviously don't need them, so they're simply outputted via this water stream right here. So how about controlling the system? We need some kind of control in order to interface it with the rest of the storage system and to make sure it only runs when it actually should be running. So here we have 3 redstone lamps, 1 input and 2 outputs. And this output outputs whether or not the sequential shulker unloader is active. So with this pink line, we can detect whether a slice is actively sorting, and whenever a slice triggers and such via this redstone line here. The next output is the request operation output. This line and such will go to my chunk loading system to request permission for this system to run and for that chunk loading to be insated. And only once that has been done, well, of course, this system get a signal back, allowing it to run. So right here's the input that controls the on-off and such. So on/standby or off/shutdown. And yeah, this request operation and such can be triggered either by having shulker boxes here in the buffer waiting to be processed, or also by the system itself while it's actively running. So you can see into the redstone here and such runs in right here as well. The input for the on and off may sound kind of simple, and it is, but at the same time there's a bit more going on behind the scenes. And if the red line right here, when it turns on, and it turns on when this turns off, we'll go ahead and power the hoppers below the filter hoppers, and also power and such these trapdoors and these observer clocks. These observer clocks and such power these droppers, which sends into a shulker box from one slice over to the next slice. And once that has been powered, the global hopper locking line will soon power a few seconds later. So let me go ahead and turn this off, or I'm sorry, turn this back on. You can see everything's resuming, everything is sorting, and now I'm going to turn it off. And you can see while the red line and such turns on immediately, this one turns on a few seconds later, and that's to help prevent an edge case where, say, if these were both turning on and off at the same time, well, if it turns on during a moment when there happens to be a shulker box that gets broken, well, that shulker box is likely just going to sit on top of the hopper and end up despawning, so that controls it right there. Another way you could think of it is that the red line is responsible for safely shutting down all the slices of Sequential Shulker Unloader, so that way the orange line can lock into all those hoppers. Now at this point you may see a little bit of a problem with how I have this set up. This controls the global hopper locking, yeah? So that means when the chunk loading happens to be active for any other components of my sword system, this will also be on. And that means that this will also have those 3 hoppers per slice unlocked by the global lock, because those need to be unlocked in order for this thing to run. So yeah, that's not exactly ideal, but luckily I got a solution. This redstone circuit right here. So, if we run the request operation signal and the, on-off signal and such through this, and basically when it turns on, for example, it will, for a brief amount of time at least, make sure it's turn on the system. And that will give it a chance that if for whatever reason some shulker boxes are kind of stuck in a system in a weird place where they're not detected, and therefore it's not requesting operation, it will allow it to run. And since it will start running, it will then very quickly start requesting operation. But as you can see, this lamp stays off. That lamp is on, saying we got chunk loading, and if we request operation, then this lamp turns on. And then if we happen to say revoke the permission to operate, we turn that off and that lamp turns off, and then it shuts down the system. That way, the hoppers are only ever unlocked when they are needed. I really want to stress the importance of this on-off switch. For a normal sequential shulker unloader system, the only real way I'd have to say turn it off and disable it is cut off the flow of additional shulkers from the beginning and wait for the rest of the shulkers to flow through. But of course, that takes time, and hey, if I need to save and quit and go do something else right now, I need to be able to do that. And fortunately, this switch gives me a safe way of quickly shutting down the system, so that way I can safely save and quit. Just like that, it's all shut down, I can save and quit, and I don't have to worry about it breaking. Parallel sequential shulker unloaders. It's something I did not do for this test here, but it is something I want to do for my sword system project. As you may recall, the bottleneck of a sequential shulker unloader is your most common item type. And in my case, it's not uncommon for me to say, have a bunch of shulker boxes from a digging project where 70% of their contents is sewn. And so that's obviously going to be a bottleneck. So how can I get around with this? Well, why don't I do 2 independent lines of sequential shulker unloaders that I run in parallel? Both of these lines have the same filter set, and I can have, say, 8 or 16 of these slices and configure them to my most common item types. So items come in, or I'm sorry, the shulker boxes come in, they get split between the 2 lines of sequential shulker unloaders, and then at the end and such, they get merged down into one. And that would result in a major speed boost when it comes to sorting my most common item types. So it's something I certainly want to do for my project. Let's see, is there anything I've forgotten here? I guess like the outputs, so all the full shulker boxes of a single item type, so any time ends of these shulker loaders fill up and replace their shulker boxes, are outputted at this water stream. And then you can go ahead and say send these shulker boxes to the shulker box sorter, and so they can be sorted into your bulk storage. And then the shulker boxes and such that go through up here to be unloaded go right here, so any of their remaining contents and such here you could send to a shulker box unloader and then unload into another part in the storage system and such. Also, the supply of empty shulker boxes to the slices of sequential shulker unloader are of course delivered via a dropper line. In this particular example, I have into this dropper line loop around, so any shulker boxes that, you know, go through here and don't get picked up and have come back around to the beginning to be sent around again. Although I'm honestly thinking for my storage system project, I might just like let the shulker boxes back up in all the droppers. It does mean an additional 18 shulker boxes per slice will be tied up in the system, but it would also simplify the redstone, so I don't know, that's probably what I'll actually end up doing for my own storage system project. A world download for this system can be found in the description down below, so if you happen to be working on your own storage system project and you need a solution for sorting your bulk items, check this out. Who knows? Maybe it'll be the right fit for you. And if so, that's actually a really great thing because 95% of the work here has already been done. Just have to scale it up to whatever your needs are. Anyways, I'll catch you all later. Bye.